Hello and happy Sunday. Good afternoon. This is the Mature Lesbian back again with another video. Um, this is part two. Well, this will be part two of my coming out story. And I hope you like the video. Subscribe and keep returning to my channel. Help us grow. Okay, so I think in part one of my video, I left off, I was talking about how I got my daughter with the help of Jesus. Because, yeah, one time, and yeah, I got pregnant and had a now 30-year-old child. And again, like I said, she has an awesome relationship with her dad. I am not, him and I are not in a relationship, obviously, but she does have an amazing relationship with her dad. He's an awesome guy. Thank you, D, if you ever see this. So fast forward almost 4 years later, I still had not come out. I still was living the life of a heterosexual female, which we all know that I'm not. And a cousin decided that she was gonna set me up with someone she knows. Um, Fast forward, I had moved out of state. I had moved to another state from the state I was living in, and ended up met the guy. We were trying for a relationship, and then I realized you made a big mistake with this one. This was not going to work. And what ended up happening, this person tried to control my life to the extent that he told me that he was going to tell me when to speak and when not to speak. And the minute I heard that, I realized, you got to go. So, unfortunately, before I was able to leave, I had I had my 4-year-old daughter with me, and before I was able to leave with her, what ended up resulting in a rape. A rape. Didn't consent. I was forced. And the thing with this is, even though I never understood, never could understand what a rape victim goes through until it actually happened to me. And this was someone that I knew, someone that I was very familiar with, very, very, very familiar with. We were sharing a space because I had deluded myself into the idea that this man and I could form a a life together. Jesus, if I could tell myself, if I could tell my then self what I know now. But anyway, I had made it clear that I was done. I was getting out, and actually a couple days before I didn't say when I was, going. I just made it clear that I was done. And unfortunately, a couple days before I was actually able to leave, I was held down and raped, and again told that I was going to learn how and when to speak to this individual. So, needless to say, by the end of that day, I had called a couple of friends of mine, packed what I could in a suitcase for my 4-year-old and myself, ended up with some garbage bags. Bought a Drove straight to work. I was stupid enough not, okay, I'm not going to use that word. I was so freaked out that I never thought to report it. It never occurred to me, because my first thought was, if I reported it, Nobody's gonna believe that this is a rape. I was sharing space with this individual. So of course they're not gonna believe this is a rape. And of course, how can somebody rape you when you're sharing space together? Um, if anybody's out there is watching this and has ever gone through something like that, my I am going to tell you right now, please, if anyone ever forces you to do anything against your will without your consent, please, please report it. I did not. And 30 years, not 30 years, 27 years later, I wish I had, but I didn't. And that was a big mistake on my part, because for until I was, this happened to me, I was 30, and it took another 14 years before I lost the fear. This lived with me for 14 years. Anyway, another story, another story. So, anyway, I moved back to the state that I had been living in. Proceeded to move on with my life. Didn't tell anybody what happened, except for a cousin, another cousin, that has since passed away. And how I ended up telling her, a few months after I had moved back to the city I had been living in before this whole thing happened. I started, my body was giving me signs like something was wrong. And long story short, my cousin came, and, and she said, I think you're pregnant. I ended up telling her what happened, saying I couldn't be pregnant from somebody like this. And that I was gonna abort this child. I didn't have insurance at the time because, mind you, I had left my job in the other state, moved to my old state, with a little bit of savings. And long story short, I found out I was pregnant. Did a pregnancy test at the hospital, found out I was pregnant. Unfortunately, because I had been having a period, they couldn't perform an abortion because they did not know how far along I was. And so they told me that I had to come back the next day, and that they had to do a scan to see, how far along I was. I'm saying it's a scan, but I don't remember the name of whatever it was called. Did that, found out that I was almost 5 months. But while I was doing the test, because I was so gung-ho, and let me just preface this by saying, I totally believe in abortion. The fact that they reverse Roe versus Wade is that's something that should never have happened. Every woman should have the right to decide if and when she's going to bring a child into the world. She should not be forced to do so. Anyway, the thing with me is, when they were doing the test, I didn't even look at the screen. I heard the heartbeat. And the minute, it was not real to me until then. And the minute I heard the heartbeat of this child, I knew I could not go through with the abortion. And that was just me. I would figure out later how I was going to deal with this person if and when it ever came up, because like I said, it's somebody that I knew very well. Long story short, had my son, and Fast forward a few years later, my mom was not dating anybody. And my mom kept saying, this is like again I said in part one, that parents know. Parents know what's going on with you. And anybody who tells me that a parent does not know if their child is falls anywhere on the LGBT Q spectrum, that's a lie. My mom would say to me every opportunity she got, I never see you dating anybody. When are you getting married? Uh, when are you, when are you going to do this? When are you going to start dating? When are you going to do that? Blah, 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 blah. So, okay, back up. Let me tell you why she started saying this. Yeah, this is going to be another long one. They might end up being a part 3. So, this is where my first actual lesbian experience happened. So there's this friend that I had known for a very long time. The friend had been married, divorced, no longer with the husband, divorced, but had a child. And the friend lived pretty close to me, and we had gotten very close. It's a friend of a friend, and we had gotten very close. And then what happened was there was a trip scheduled. One of those trips that you take a bus ride to another state, blah blah blah. So a whole bunch of people, people from school, people from church, like a whole bunch of people ended up going on this trip. And she was one of these people. Neither one of us knew that the other was going, but when we got to where we were going, and it was a day overnight trip, we got to where we were going, we ended up hanging out together. And then we just got to talking, and I don't know how it ended up getting to where each of us kind of, started talking about being with women. But we got there, and we never left there. Nothing happened on that trip, but we exchanged numbers, and it became a thing where we spoke every day. Now, this person lives a very heterosexual life, and I had a crush on her. For some reason, I didn't think that she felt the same, and I just knew, even though I had a crush on her, I just knew that nothing was ever going to happen, but I dreamt. Then the conversations turned into sexual conversations, and I would tell her what I would like to do to her. She would tell me, no. She never actually said she would like to do anything to me, but she was very receptive of what I wanted to do to her, which should have clued my ass in that this person is a effing user and selfish. Anyway, long story short, again, I have a lot of long story shorts. We ended up having a sexual relationship. She would never reciprocate. I would do everything to her. Enjoyed it. You name it, I did it. I enjoyed it. I'm sure as shit she enjoyed it, but she would never reciprocate. And at the end of every session would tell me, oh, she's just experimenting. Anybody ever tell you that? Girl, if any woman ever tell you that, and you know you're a lesbian and they're enjoying you going down on them and everything else on the planet, and then they're telling you that they're experimenting, they're a goddamn liar. Anyway, This went on for years, that I ended up moving out of state again, to another state, this time for work. And but I would come back and forth every weekend. Well, not every weekend, at least one weekend a month. I would drive 7 hours just to see this woman. Spend one out of the 2 nights I was in the state with her. I would get to my mom's house, drop my kids off, go to this woman's house. And now, this is, like I said, this is a friend of a friend. No, nobody in my family knows her. And I'm going to change some information to protect the innocent, because I'm not here to out anybody. Everybody should out themselves. And anybody who willfully outs anybody else, you are a crock of shit. You're a piece of shit. Anyway, so this relationship, and I'm saying it's a relationship, even though she deluded herself into thinking she's still straight after she enjoys every day, and she, yes, she enjoyed. Would say that she's a heterosexual, and so you're telling me you're experimenting. I'm talking more than 5 years, and this was just an experiment on her part. Now, like I said, I knew the first time T went down on me, that's my ex-boyfriend T, that I was a lesbian. I knew that. I knew what the word was, that I was, what I'd been feeling since I was a child. I knew what that was. But fear kept me. Fear kept me from being who I am. It's, fear of losing my family, fear of losing who I was. I was not comfortable in my own skin. I just didn't know. And I will tell anybody that if I didn't have my children, God gave me those children for a reason, I probably would have killed myself. Because in concentrating on their well-being, I didn't have time to worry about myself. So, back to my mom. So, this had been going on with this friend. And every time I would come, my mom would say, every time you come, you ended up going to your friend's house. You drop the kids and you just go to your friend's house, and I don't understand what's going on. And then she would start on with when are you getting married? When are you this? When are you that? So at that point, this was now 2007, the same cousin who had introduced me to the piece of shit that raped me, had moved to another state from where I was living, and had gotten married. And her husband's best friend happened to see my photograph and liked me, wanted to meet me. We ended up meeting, and I told myself, I am going to hold on to this man. I'm going to get rid of these. Two reasons I did it. I crazily thought that if I got with this man, I could hide how I was feeling, and just get rid of those feelings. Get rid of those feelings. Those feelings. You can choose. This is me talking to myself. You can choose to not be a lesbian. Such a crock. You have to be who you are. You have to be who you are. You cannot be anybody else other than who you are. And then the second thing was, my mom is in my ear with this, I don't see you dating anyone. When are you getting married? Blah, 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 blah. So, of course, I got into a real fast relationship with this person, because It was now 2007, and by 2008, I had married him, moved to the state where he's living, bringing my children along. Thing about this is, I liked this guy. He's a good guy. Um, didn't deserve didn't deserve to get into a marriage with somebody who was not herself. Um, and I'm only gonna say that because when I say not that much of a good guy, but what I did was not. It's not okay. It's not okay to bring someone else in your mess. And so, in bringing him into my mess and not knowing or not having the guts to say who I am, I actually took 2 years of his life because he could have been with anybody else. He could have gone on and, marry somebody else. And I took 2 years of his life with the dating and the quickie marriage. And actually, the day I was marrying him, it was just him and me and the judge. We didn't even have any witnesses. And I'm screaming in my own head saying, this is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. But I went ahead and did it anyway because I was going to convince myself that I could be a straight woman. Needless to say, less than 2 months into this, I had packed my shut because I had gotten to the point. It's almost like I had to stand up to myself. I had to stand up to myself and say, if not now, when? And you are going to. I thought I had felt like earlier on, before my kids or when my kids were younger, I felt like I could take my life. When I got married and realized what I had actually done, that I had committed myself, not my true self, the fake self that I had been selling to myself and everybody else. And I had tied this person up into a marriage and tied myself up into a marriage. I knew I had to get out and I had to be me. I still didn't have the guts to be myself, but what I did that I think was smart, I got out of the marriage. And eventually moved back to the state where I was. And it took another almost, at this time I was 44, and it took almost another month after I had moved back to the state, before my daughter went to college. I sat my children down. Because I had to come out to my children, and I was so afraid, but I figured I had to at least, because you come out to yourself. You have to admit who you are. You have to say this to yourself, and you have to say it out loud. So I came out to myself, and I had to come out to my children, and I had to sit them down, and I knew that I was taking a risk because not every child is okay with, a parent who. I had lived a life for so long. I sold my children a bill of goods that were not the right bill of goods. So in other words, my 18-year-old daughter who was going to college did not know who her mother was because her mother had presented one image to her and is now presenting another image. So of course, they both told me they love me. They embraced me, but my daughter it took years for my daughter to be 100% comfortable about who I am. Even now, I don't, and she's 30. It's not something we talk about. She would give her life for me. I'm very sure. But as far as the lesbian part of it, we have not had. I'm waiting for that conversation, but we have not had a true conversation about that piece of me. Now we're 24 minutes into the video, And I did not say how I came out to, my mother and sisters and siblings and friends. I had just come out to myself and my children. So obviously, there's going to be a part three to this. So, again, what I want you to take away from this video is you have to be yourself, you have to be who you are. You cannot present an imposter to people. And when you've presented yourself, because I was an imposter for 18 years of my daughter's life and for 14 years of my son's, I had sold them somebody that I was not. And so, you know, I had lived a whole life. So, again, please have the courage to be who you are, irregardless of what anyone else think, because I know with everything in me as I'm talking to you right now, that if I had not had my children to concentrate on and figure out their lives, I would not be sitting here today talking to you this Sunday. So again, please stay tuned for part 3. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel and continue to enjoy the Matured Lesbian. Thank you. Have a great day.